Hey, what's up everybody? So welcome back to another tutorial. So in this video, I'm going to explain that how we can find the user status with the help of socket. So it's all implemented using the real-time, and let's log in with the user that I have already created at. So let me log in with the john@gmail.com and add the password here. So as long as I logged in here, you could see here the Kevin, the user that I have created, it's offline right now. So I have already opened my new tab here, and let me log in with the kevin@gmail.com so you guys could see that the user is logged in. Now you see here, let me add the valid email here, right? So if I just try to log in here, you see now it's showing me the green. That means that John is logged in, and from the other side you see here that John is logged in, right? So we also have created a very basic avatar name. You could see in how I've implemented. If I hover on it, you see it's showing the user is online. And just like on the other case, if I just try to log out, if I logged out with the user, now if I go back to the Kevin, and you see now it's showing me offline. Even I can hover on it, it shows me away, right? So let me create another user. So if I just try to register with another user, so let me create here the AB Nation and the email. So if I just try to register with that, and now if I try to reach to the login here, so let me add the email real quick here. So if I just try to log in, and now you see that we have now two users, and both users are offline. So let me log in with the John, and you see how fast the sockets work. So if I just try to log in here, and you see now that it's showing me the AB Nation is logged in, and on the other side you see now if I'm just logged in with the AB Nation, and now John is logged in, right? So that's what we are going to implement in this video, and this is all implemented using sockets. So I hope you guys will love. So let's jump in and get started here. Alright guys, so the first thing that you need to do is to get the clone of the authentication project, which will save a lot of time for us. So you can either use scaffolding, which is the Laravel built-in authentication, or if you can follow up with that, that's gonna be more better. So I have this video that you can watch. I want to give that link in the description so you can watch that, and you can even learn how to create the authentication if you're very completely new for that. So let's gonna grab this one, and I'm gonna open up on my desktop. So git bash here, whatever the directory you have, you can either go to XAMPP and you can either install anywhere Laravel. So I'm going to open up on my desktop. So let me just simply type git clone and just copy the link here and paste it right up here and press enter, and this is going to clone the project for us, right? So let's go inside the user auth, and later on I'm going to change the name for this. So which should be socket_app. You can change this for now. It's all up to you. Let me open up with the VS Code space dot, and there we are. So before setting up the project, the two things are required here. First, I need to configure my environment file. So let me copy that up and create here the .env file right on my root directory, and change the Laravel database name should be socket_app. So that's all I need for now, right? So the next thing that I'm going to do is to install the composer. So composer install. So this is going to create the vendor folder for us, right? All right, so this is going to be installing, and I'm going to open up my PHP myadmin so I can have my database created, right? So click on the new one and just create the database name, which in my case should be socket_app. All right, so this is going to create the app, the database for us, socket_app, and I'm going to open up my terminal, which is actually still keep installing. Make sure you have two things installed on your system. The first thing that you need to do is to go and open up your Node.js and make sure that it's installed. If you haven't installed that, you can just simply open up the nodejs.org, and you can either use the recommended version or the latest feature. But I highly suggest that you use the recommended for user. Which will work fine. Even latest features are still good, but you can use recommended, right? So next thing that I'm going to do here is, if I'm going to open up my PHP myadmin, and there you see we have created the database. Next we have to run the migration, which is still keep running. My composer still keep installing. So open up the terminal, and you just need to see that everything has been installed on your system properly. So let me check the node version here. So node dash dash version, and you see it's installed 14.15.1. If you have 12, still fine. Yeah, it's gonna work, right? So next thing that I'm gonna do here is the node version and the composer should be installed, which in my case is installed. So just want to show you composer dash dash version, and in my case is 2.0.14. So make sure you have those things set up, right? All right, so the install is successfully, the composer installed successfully. Next, we have to generate the key. So PHP artisan key generate, and this is going to create the generate the key for us. And the last thing that is the run the migration. So PHP artisan migrate, and this is going to run the migration. And let me run the server, PHP artisan serve. And this is going to run the server for us. So let me open up my server here. And you see here we have a basic authentication installed already, which I have my video. I want to give that link in the description so you guys could either watch that or you can simply clone that if you have an idea how to build an authentication. Right, so let's first register the user. I'm going to register the very first user. Let me give the John Doe and john@gmail.com and add the password here. Register the user. Let me log in with the same user and john@gmail.com, and let me add the login here. And you see now we have a very basic the basic process for the authentication panel, right? And you see here the add task listing, which in my case is showing, so you can either skip that or I want to keep that repo. The let me check the routes, which I have skipped it. Yeah, it's not going to show up here. So let me simply check my migrations as well. So you see here the migrations are also there, users migration. So I'm going to go to my dashboard.blade.php and just simply remove this section from here. All right, so I'm going to remove this one. And that's everything that you write here. Just want to comment this so you guys could do and follow along with me, and that's where you can add your content whatever you want. So I'm going to push that code so that everything is fine. Yeah, I have to also fix one more thing that is not required in this project, which is the if I'm going to go to my layouts master.blade.php file, and that's everything that you see here. It's basically everything that you see related to Bootstrap CDN. You have your Font Awesome CDN already defined here. It's the authentication panel, so keep that for now. And I have my pusher, which in my last video I keep that and just skip that because we have to use sockets here. So I think that's all good, and I'm gonna push this code so you guys could follow along with that same role. All right, so go to the terminal and make sure I have my git initialize here. So git add dot. I'm gonna push my code, so updated, and just simply git push origin master. So I just pushed this code so you guys could follow along with me, right? So just close that and let's work with the process that what we need to implement here, right? So sockets are basically the bidirectional communication between the client and the server. So if I'm going to open up the socket.io documentation, you see here is the click on the getting started here. So the server is basically the Node.js and the client side is the browser. And if you can read its documentation, so the first goal is to implement the HTML forms and messages. So this is the very basic example for the chat app application, or loading up the content from the index.html file and display the message. So that's basically the one example that you can see. But in my case, we are implementing the how we can check the status online and online real time, and that's all going to happen with these sockets. So let me go to the documentation here, and you see here this is the client side. And if I'm going to open up here and then click on the installation, these are all the browsers that were supported here. And by default, socket.io exposes a client bundle. So this is the socket.io bundle here. And this is the CDN that you can grab it from here. So I'm going to copy that from here, and this is basically the CDN that can be enabled on the client side. So let me go to the master.blade.php. So resources, views, and layouts, that's where I have my master.blade.php, and make sure that it should be right after the, keep that on top even. That's fine, right? All right, so we have enabled our sockets, CDN, and let me go to the root directory and create here a file with the name of server.js file, which is the entry point file for our Node.js. We are going to create a very basic server for the node, and that will help us to integrate the functionality that we need to implement for the integration of sockets, right? So socket.io will help us to generate a very basic server, so we can communicate with the server and the client. So the two basic things that were required first. The first thing that I'm going to install here is the Express server. So let me install that, and npm install Express, and I'm going to also install the sockets.io, which is also from the Node package manager. So all the dependencies are installed with the help of npm, and you make sure you have your Express install. And next thing that I'm going to install here is the npm install socket.io. So these are all the things that are installed on your composer.json file. So let me go open up inside your package.json file. So if I'm going to open up my package.json file, and you see here we have now two dependencies, the first one for the Express and the next one is for the socket.io, right? All right, so let's create a very basic server, right? Go inside your server.js file, which is the root directory file, and I'm going to open up the const express equal to require, and let's put up here the Express server. All right, so next we have to put here the application and pass here the Express. Right, so let's create here a server variable, and let's pass here require, and we have to build in the HTTP request and create the server with the help of create server method. And let's pass here the application, which is the app, which is coming from the app, right? Next, we have to configure IO for the setup for the IO connection. So let me require that and add here the socket.io. And let's pass here the server and also pass the origin so that we can access from all sides. So let's pass the origin. So if you normally get the error, so make sure you have to add up the header like this. This static means that this has been accessible for all the headers, right? All right, so next we have to set up the connection for the socket.io. Whenever we have to use io.on connection, so make sure that it is responsible for listening the connection even, and will run the provided function anytime it happens. So let me write that up and see. So io.on connection, and let me pass here the callback function right inside here, and pass the socket inside here. All right, that's all we need. All right, so we have a connection and we have passed the callback socket, the callback function, which includes the sockets. And I'm going to write very basic thing here. So socket.on is basically help us for listening the events. So whenever we are going to use here socket.on, so it is basically, it listens for specific events to collect the data, right? All right, so socket.on, and let's pass here the user underscore connected, and we have to pass here the callback, and let me pass here the function. And next here I'm going to check the connection. If the user is logged in, that it's going to show us that either the user is connected or disconnected. So I'm going to again pass here socket.on here, and let's pass here disconnect and pass here the callback function. All right, so right inside here I'm going to pass here console.log. Just simply display the message here that user disconnected. All right, So same here. I just want to check the user ID. So just for now, just simply pass here console.log, and I need to display here dynamic ID. So I'm gonna put that inside the backticks here, and user connected. And just to check this out, I have to pass here the ID, and how I'm gonna pass the ID. So let me go to the dashboard.blade.php, right? And that's where everything is going to work, right? So let me push here the JavaScript here. This is basically the helper function for the JavaScript here. And from where this is coming from, if you go to your master.blade.php, and everything is wrapped, all the scripts are wrapped inside this JavaScript, which is the stack, and pushed every script right inside the JavaScript, right? So this is the good feature that can help for you to add the individual scripts, right? Rather, I should add that right into the master file, everything. I created the separate stack and pushed the script right inside my dashboard.blade.php, right? I'm going to show you a little while if you don't understand that, right? So the first thing that I'm going to do here, let's put here scripts and document.ready function. So this is going to run ready function, and let's use the user ID, which is coming from the user ID auth. So in order to get the dynamic user ID, there is a way that auth user, that's how I can grab the ID for the user which is logged in. And let's pass here IP_address equal to, let me add 127.0.1, which is the local address, local host. And next we have to pass, let me wrap this inside single quotes. Still fine, you can use double quotes if you want. So the next is the socket port, which I haven't defined yet. So let me go back to the server.js file. Yes, we created we have to show if the server is running successfully or not. So for this case, all I need is just simply server.listen the connection on port number 3000. Let's pass here the callback method. Actually, it should be right here. All right, so forget to bring here, right? All right, so right inside here, I need to just simply console.log server is running, right? All right, so now in order to run the server, all I need is just simply clear that out and simply type node server.js, the name of the file, right? And you see here the server is running in my case, right? So that's all we need. Now we have to see that if the user is connected, I'm going to pass its ID with the help of sockets.image, which I'm going to do in a little while, and I'm explaining that what is that. So let me go to the dashboard.blade.php, and we are actually establishing the connection between the client and the server. So let me do the last thing here. So let socket equal to IO, and let's pass and concatenate the IP address, which should be IP_address, pass here colon, and pass here the port number, which is socket_port. All right, so that's all the stuff that we needed. So next thing that I'm going to do here is, so socket.on. So let's pass here connect and callback function. So right inside that, I'm going to emit an event. So socket.emit is responsible for sending the events. So we can generate our own custom events. So whenever I'm going to use socket.emit, we can create our own custom event. So in my case, let me pass here the user_connected, and that is sent to the server side, as you could see here, user_connected, and listens the event with the help of socket.on. And I'm going to pass here the ID so that we can able to find out which user is logged in or not. So socket.on connect, and right after that I'm going to pass here the ID, which is the user underscore ID, which is coming from the logged in ID, right? All right, so that stuff is done, and let me pass here the ID to the server.js. So it should be user underscore connected. So let me pass here user underscore ID. So remember, this user underscore ID is coming from the image, the event that we have sent, right? And this will listen the event, and we are able to check the ID. So let me just simply pass a user underscore ID, and let me just close the server again and run node server.js. And if I'm going to make sure my server should be running as well, and it's running, right? So let me run the yeah, right over here. So if I just try to refresh this, and so first try to log out user, and if I'm going to pass here the john@gmail.com, and add the password here, let me log in with the user, and I don't need to save this. So if I go back to the terminal, and you see now the user connected with the ID 1, right? So if I'm just want to refresh this, as you could see, so a very short time the user disconnected, and you see with the and it connects back, right? So if I just try to log out here, and now if I just try to see it, now you see here the user is disconnected, right? So that's the beauty of the socket. You see here how powerful and how quick the response is, right? So I'm going to take a short break. So in the next part after the break is where we are going to implement the offline and online status user. So I will be right back right after a very short break. Alright guys, so welcome back here. So let me go inside my resources, views, and dashboard of blake.php, and we have to write a very basic UI where we have to list all the users which are logged in or not. So depending on the user status, we are able to show that the status. If that is active, that means it's green, and if it's not, then it's muted, or it's gray, means that it's not highlighted, right? So we are going to create a very basic UI so we can figure out who those users are logged in, and display all the list of users which are inactive or active, right? So right inside here, I'm going to actually put this navbar right after the right inside the content, because that makes more sense. So let's create here a container. So right after the container, I have created here a row, and right inside the row, let me define a call -md-3, which is a bootstrap grid class, and right inside here, I'm going to display all the users. So let me create here a class for the users if you want, or h5 for the users. So right after the users, I'm going to create here an unordered list. So right, actually it should be ul, and right ul we have a list class of list-group. All right, and right inside here, I'm going to create here list item. So it should have a class of list-group-item, and I'm going to create here another class for list-group-item-dark, which should give me the dark gray color. So next we have another class. We have a d-flags. So display everything inside the single list item. And then we have to use here justify -content -between. Right, so we have another class for the align item. So let me align all the items center, right? So that's all I need, right? So this is the class for my list item, right? So right inside here, I'm going to display two things. I'm going to display here the chat image, which I have to create first. We have to define that custom class inside our assets. And next thing that I'm going to show also the name. So right after that, we have our chat name, right? The username, right? So dot chat name with the class of font-weight bold, which will give me a bold text, right? So let me write here something here. So that's all good. So let's have a look and see how it looks. So I need to log in first with the john@gmail.com. It should be john@gmail, right? So if I just try to log in here, so you see here we have a name, but we have to display here something like an avatar with having the user status, which is shown inside very rounded, just like Facebook have the status active, inactive, right? So let me go back to my dashboard file, and I'm going to create here a file right inside my public folder. So make sure it should be out of your root directory. So if you're at your root directory, create a folder right inside public and give the name of assets. Let me create here a folder with the name of assets, and let me create another folder with the name of CSS. It should be not, actually you just need to have. All right, so let's create a file with the name of style.css. All right, so that's where I'm going to bring my every CSS here. So first I'm going to give here a body. So let me give a body of font size of 18 pixel. So right here we have a name image. We have given that class. So let me give here a width of 40 pixel and height of 40 pixel, color white. So this is basically what I have to show. If you have seen the example where I have a rounded circle with an only first letter, so that is for that case. So border radius of 50% to make that rounded, and font weight of 800. Next we have our padding. Let me give the padding from the top 5 pixels and display inline block. Text align center, and the font size should be, in this case, it should be same, right? So I don't need that 18 pixel, which is already defined. And let me text dash transform to the uppercase, right? All right, so that's for the name image. Now for the chat image, if I just want to see, right, I haven't defined anything like this. So now I have to show the status icon, which should be right inside my list group item. Right inside this chat dash image, I need to display here the font awesome class. So let's define that I dot, so fa dash circle. All right, so right inside here, I have to define a class which is user dash status dash icon, and next we have to define here the attribute, which should be title for now. Just keep that away, means that it's offline, right? So let me create here a class here which I've just defined now. So it should be user dash status dash icon. Let me copy it from here. It should be dot because it's a class. So right inside here, I'm going to give it the position of absolute and give it the top 22 pixel, left 28 pixel. All right, so and the color, which should be by default, should be color of gray, which I should give simple gray, right? All right, so that's good, I think. A chat dash image. Yeah, I need to also define this class here. So inside here, I want to give that display inline block. So that should be a block level, right? Now, if I go back and refresh this, so it looks something like this. We haven't defined here the assets. We haven't defined the path. So let me go to my master.blade.php, and right after the bootstrap.css font awesome, I have to create my static assets. So here, let me define here. Actually, it should be in. So it should be assets. Let me define the assets folder. Right inside, we have a CSS folder. Create a class of style.css, and I want to put this all right inside my style.css, which I'm going to fix in the repository for the auth module. so you guys don't need to do that stuff. So this is gonna also save your time. So let me go that to style, put that right here. All right, so if I refresh this, so this should look something like this. So let's define here the path for the avatar, the file that we need to create. So let's go inside your composer.json file, and right after the autoload-dev, and make sure you should be inside that, and that's where you need to define the files. So I'm going to create here files and put here the colon, and right inside here let's define the path, which should be app/http/ and let's give it the name of helpers for now, right? And let's define and create that file inside the HTTP, and I'm going to create here a file with the name of helpers.php. All right, so let's bring up here the opening and the closing tag for the PHP, and right inside here I'm going to create here a function. That function will create the file. That function will create the avatar for us, right? So let's add the function. So function, and let's give it the name of make avatar from name, and let's pass here the name that is coming from the blade file. That should be a first name, right? Right inside here, I'm going to create two things: the user image and the user and the short name, right? The name that I need to short with the help of the explode method. All right, so right after that, I'm going to create here the names equal to, and the method which will convert the string into the array, which is the explode method. And right after that, let's pass here the name that is coming from that is first name, right? And I'm going to loop the name which are coming. There are a collection of names coming from, so it can be more than one, right? So let's define the key here, and right inside that I'm going to define the short name and give it the index of and concatenate that, and let's give it the index of 0. Means if that John, then that should give me J, capital J, right? So the last thing, the user image that I need to have in a div, let's give it the class for name-image, and I need to give here a bootstrap class of dark, bg-dar, right? That's it. All right, so this should be the class name, and I need to close that div as well. All right, so we define here the class for the name-image, which is the background-dark, and I need to actually close that with a single quotes. And I also need to have here single quotes, right? All right, so this should be something like this. So inside here, I need to concatenate my short name, and it should be like that, right? So right after that, I need to simply return the user image. All right, so I hope this should work. So the last thing that I need is just copy the name and paste it right inside the dashboard.blade.php. Make sure you should be above the so first I need to pass here the string literals like that, and let's define here the method, and let's pass here key of first name, right? That's it. All right, so now if I just want to see and look how it looks like, so if I refresh this, this should say that the call to undefined method, because we need to update our composer. So let me write here composer update, because we have did some changes inside the composer file. So this should make sure you should update that, right? So once it's composed, then this method should be called. And I need to change one more thing inside style.css, because we have defined here the chat-image, which is the inline block. And if I make sure from the class that I define inside helpers.php, that should be name-image. So let me go to name-image, which is fine, and let's give it here the display, the position to be relative, right? So position relative, because we have here the status user icon, which should be inside the chat image. All right, so make sure its composer runs successfully, but it says that no such file or stream found. All right, so let me go to the helpers.php, or I should need to go to the composer.json. So right inside here, the files that I have is the app/http/helpers. Make sure you should have your right path. So it should be inside my helpers, which is fine, right? So let me clear that up and composer update again. Yeah, it should be helpers.php actually. All right, so that's fine now. Make sure you have your extension in, right? All right, so let's go inside your dashboard.blade.php and do a few changes here. So I need to list all the users. So for that, I need to go to the user controller. Make sure the user which is logged in should not be appear in the list. So I have to apply here a condition, and that should be a very basic users where, so user model where the user, make sure that where the ID not equal to the ID that is logged in. So auth user, it should be auth ID, right? And simply get that. So I'm going to use here a compact method that will pass the users to the blade file, and that's it, right? So I'm going to go to my dashboard.blade.php. Make sure your composer, yeah, it's now successfully updated. I'm going to run my server again, php artisan serve, and I need to do here one more change here. Let's pass here the dynamic listing for the data. So I'm going to inside UL, and I'm going to define here the list items. So let's pass here the first I need to have here a if condition that if users count exists, and I'm going to loop the data. So that should be $users as $key, and same here I need to end the for each loop, and I also need to end the if statement. All right, so that's fine, and I hope that it's gonna work. So let me refresh back and see if everything looks good. All right, so I refresh back and says the unexpected token. So let me check what's wrong here. That should be the keyf name. That if, yeah, it should be for each, right? And I also need to display the dynamic name here. So it should be UC first, the method which will convert the very first letter into the first in caps. So $key, and I'm going to pass here first name, and let me check this out again, and there we are. So we are not seeing any users because the users that is logged in should not be shown in the list, but we have to create here a new user. So I'm going to log out from here, and let's register a new user. So I'm going to create here a Kevin Doe and kevin@gmail.com 1 2 3 4 5 6. If I just register that and let me log in with that user. All right, so there we are. So you see here that we have our John coming in, that the user, that the list that, but by default it's logged out. And you see once I hover on it, that's going to show me that's away, means that it's offline. Now in order to work dynamically, we have to do a few changes. So I'm going to close the other files that I don't need here. So close the style.css file. We don't need any user controller much more. We don't need any master.blade, right? So let me go inside the server.js file. As you could see that we have two main sockets. We have two events, one the user that is connected and the other that user that is disconnected. Now I'm going to create here a users array, and what it's going to do here is, let me pass here const users, and I'm going to pass those users in the user connected. Once the user is connected, and I'm going to pass here users and user underscore ID. Make sure those all users should have the socket.id, means that those users should have the ID for the socket. Every user has its own unique ID for the socket, right? And if I'm going to show you right real quick, console.log, and if I'm going to pass the users with the, even I just pass the users, and if I'm going to close the server and run that again, and you see here that each user, this is the 4 empty items, and that's the ID that is passed in, right? So that's the socket.id is passed to the individual users, right? So just all right, so let's create here the custom event with the help of socket.emit. So it should be io.emit, not the socket, right? So right inside here, I'm going to pass here the static event, which should be, let's give it the name of update user status with the users, right? So make sure that every user which is logged in should have the ID, right? And I'm going to do this same thing right inside my disconnect, although there is a difference that if that user exists and once it's logged out, it should be removed from the array, right? We don't need that after that. Okay, so for making this happen, this update user status, all I need is to just go to my dashboard.blade.php, and right after the socket.onConnect, I need to pass here the event with the help of new socket.on, and let's pass here the update user status, and that should have the data in. So let's pass here the function with the data, and right inside here I'm going to pass and create here a variable with the name of $user status icon, and that should check with the class that exists. So first I'm going to create here the class that is passing, so make sure it should see right inside that status and title, the attribute that I'm going to get with the jQuery. So it's going to get the class for it in order to access that. So let me remove this U. All right, so that should be like this, and I need to remove the class. So in order to remove the class, we have a method in jQuery which is remove class, and let's pass here text that success. So it will only work if that user is logged out, right? And we also need to get the attribute for that. So there is a method in jQuery which is ATTR title, and let's give it the away. And how it's going to work, let me show you. So the title that is coming in order to get the attribute, so I'm going to get the title in and pass it here and give it the value, right? So it should be the update user status, right? And next I have the another functionality that I need to implement, that if there is some value exists, right? So make sure you should be inside the update user status. So let's define here method $.each. It should have the data in, and we have two more attributes, the key and the value. So key where the ID exists, and the value where we have the socket ID, the ID that is passed in from to the user, just like the socket.id, right? So we have to apply here a condition that if that value is not equal to null, means if there is some value, and I also need to check that if it's the if it's don't have the value not equal to 0, right? So make sure that inside here I'm going to create another variable. Let's give it the user icon, and equal to, let's define here the user dash icon class. Now I need to add the class for the text dash success, which means that if that user is logged in, I need to pass the class text dash success, which is a bootstrap class which gives the green color, right? So I'm going to create here a class with the name of icon user dash icon dash, and that's going to loop the data in, and we have to pass here the dynamic ID. So let me pass here $key dash ID, and this, with the help of that loop, we are able to see if that value exists, means if that user and the value exist, we have to pass that ID to the user, right? So how I'm going to do is, let's pass it .user dash icon, and I need to concatenate that. So let's pass it dash, and I need to pass here the key, which is the ID. All right, so let me copy that from the top and paste it twice, 2 more times, so that we don't need to write. So give it the user icon variable, and I need to remove, rather I should remove it. In that case, I need to add the class because ID and the value exist, and let's make it the title of online, right? And that's it, all good. All right, so but this is not going to only work, because once the user logged in, yes, we are able to log the user. If I'm going to show you real quick, if I just want to run the server again, and if I just try to refresh this, so there is a mistake, there's some error right inside the $each. Let me go back and check inside the dashboard.blade.php. So we have the dollar, yeah, we are just missing the bracket here. So let's go back and see. All right, so there is no more, still we have some issues here. Function here, right? We have to pass the function, and yeah, that's fine now. All right, so let's refresh back and see. Yeah, now we have no any errors, right? So now I'm going to do here is let me open up another tab and try to log in with the another user. So right now I'm logged in with the Kevin. So let's log in with the john@gmail.com, right? So if I just try to log in, and you see here that now the user is logged in, and there we go. So it's now showing me the indication that the user is logged in, right? The John is logged in, right? And from the other perspective, it's showing me the Kevin is logged in, right? Now it's going to work. Now, if I just try to log out from here, and if I keep back to the same, and if I refresh this, it's still keeping me showing that the user is online, right? The reason why, because that ID still existing, and we need to remove that once if the user is logged out, right? So I'm going to go to the disconnect, and we have to we have to delete that user. So in order to delete it, so let me create here a variable, and we have to delete it with the help of supplies. So first we need to get the index of the ID that I need to delete. So socket.id, and the supplies is the method which will help us to delete it from the array. So users.supplied, it should have three parameters. The first parameter is the index of the ID, the starting position that I want to delete, and I want to delete only one record, and I don't need to add more elements inside the array after deletion, right? So these are the three parameters for the supplies method, right? Now if I just try to close the server again and run that again, and if I go back to the browser and refresh this, and you see now it's showing me great, right? So let me test this out again. So let me, I need to check which user I'm logged in with the John. So let's log in with the Kevin again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 logged in here. And you see now it's showing me green here. If I go back here, it's showing me green. Now, what if I just try to log out with the same? Now it's logged out, and if I go back here, and you see now there's the status indication that no more user is logged in. So you see here how quick response, how Socket is really comparatively much more faster. It provides a lot of other great features that we need to follow along with at the time, right? So thank you guys for watching this video, and I hope you guys learned something out of it. So don't forget to like and subscribe, and I want to see you for the next time.